Hey there YouTube, how's it going? I wanted to come back and do another 6-scale action figure review, and today I'm taking a break from the samurai, but I'm still sticking with the medieval theme. And I'm looking at the CooModel, Shanghai, maybe exclusive Knights Hospitaller action figure. This guy is still available in most places for a retail of around $260 to $270, and this guy is a beast, and again shows just how far CooModel has come in its construction. So what I am going to do is set up the camera here and get this guy off of the rotating display base. There we go. And we are going to take a look at it. So first of all, he does come with a couple of extra hands. I fully intend to have him wielding his sword and his shield at all times in my display, so I haven't really bothered doing anything else with any other hands. I don't need the loose grip ones, but they're there if you do want them. Now onto the figure. Let's take that helmet off real quick. So this is a full-on hard die-cast metal helmet. It looks really good. It's huge and it fits over the figure wonderfully fine. One of the main draws for me towards this figure was this chainmail coif that he came with. CooModel really decided to up their game, and instead of doing some sort of fabric chainmail, or you know how most companies will do, Ace does it a lot, a tight scrunchy little fabric to make it look somewhat like chainmail on the figure, CooModel decided that they were going to go all out and give us this real chainmail coif, which just drapes over this guy awesomely. And we're going to take that off now and get to what's underneath that layer. The head sculpt is really just kind of meh. I mean, he's a big angry white guy. CooModel, I mean, you know, it has some lifelike to it, and I'm glad that they went for an expression, you know, and instead of just a blank sort of face like we get all too often in this 6-scale world. But CooModel's European likenesses are still nothing compared to their Asian likenesses, their samurais, their Japanese likenesses. Those always look really good, those head sculpts. Even when they're just subtly emotive, they still turn out really nice. The European ones, you know, this is, you know, it's not great. Everything's crisp, paint's all right, but it's just not, you know, a super cool head sculpt, which is fine because I'm going to keep that helmet on him all the time like I usually do. One thing to note, and you might be able to make it out in the video, right there on the tip of his nose, there is a spot of paint rub. So do beware if you're picking up this figure that paint rub could happen if you're taking that helmet on and off, or even just putting that helmet on. Like I said, it doesn't matter too much to me because I don't intend to ever take that helmet off, but do be on the lookout for that, as that's a thing. Alright, and coming down into the arms, all of this is, again, die-cast all the way throughout all of the arms. The shield, it is a wooden shield, and it is made of, is that plastic or is that wood? I can't actually tell. I think it's plastic. It is realistically bolted in there, so when you're removing the shield, you're going to want to be careful with that. Again, coming down here, the other accessories he comes with are this really nice sword, which fits super tightly into the hand. It is a big, heavy piece, but CooModel has constructed their bodies to be able to wield these big, heavy pieces just fine. So there's not going to be any bending of the elbows. The only thing I've ever noticed with their figures is that sometimes that wrist joint can tend to get a bit loose. And there. So I got it right here. I'm going to let go. Oh, never mind. There. So that might slide around a little bit. That is mitigatable. Sometimes when the wrist joints get loose from carrying around these big heavy accessories, what I will do is just pop off the hand and wrap a rubber band around the wrist, and it creates more friction in there and holds those a lot tighter. This issue isn't really that prevalent for me right now with this figure, so I haven't really worried about it too much. After that sword, the only other thing he comes with is this axe. It's a nice looking Danish axe. Again, it's all die cast metal like everything else, except for the handle, which might be plastic, but the axe head itself is a nice metal piece, and it looks really good. I don't think that for a knight it's quite as iconic of a weapon. I mean, knights did use axes and pole arms and stuff like that. I mean, just in terms of my display, which kind of goes slightly more of a fantasy route, I'll probably give him the iconic sword and shield that we romanticize knights as using all the time. So that's what I'm going to do. This axe looks great, though. And I might actually end up giving it to one of my CooModel Vikings, because I do think it would fit in very well with those characters. But that's enough of that. Moving into the figure again, let's get a close-up on those belts. So, unlike what I've seen CooModel do in the past with some of their older figures, they've decided to go with rubber belts, which is just fine. It really doesn't bother me when someone uses rubber instead of real leather, especially when the rest of the figure is of such overpowering quality. It really doesn't matter. They were easier to put on, which I consider a big plus. There we go. Let's get those out of the way so we can see it. So construction was fine. It comes with two. There's this thicker belt, which has a spot for the sword to just kind of sling into on there. See that little loop? And, oh, I did forget an accessory. He comes with this dagger, which also fits onto his belt. And coming around, you can see that they've got a ton of detail going on in the sheath for the dagger. So that looks pretty good. Also, so yep, two belts that you just kind of sling on them right there, and that's no big deal. I decided to put this tabard on him. It looks really nice. It's been printed on there. It's got a little bit of wear and tear look going to it. The fabric drapes just nicely. It's a felty feeling sort of a thing with some weathering on it as you get down towards the legs. However, before I decided to put this on, I did actually keep him in my display for a little bit without it, and I don't... Oh, heck. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Certainly not as big of a pain in the butt as a lot of other CooModel figures tend to be when it comes to dressing and undressing them. But I don't want to take that tabard all the way off right now. So I'm not going to worry about doing that. However, maybe I can get in underneath. He comes wearing this padded gambeson right out of the box before you put the tabard on. And it's got all those nice metal rivets going down it and all those pads. And it looks really good. So if you'd rather have a medieval bandit on display perhaps, and not necessarily a Knight's Hospitaller, then you can display him without the tabard, and he still looks excellent. There are pictures of what he looks like without the tabard on all the websites that you would pre-order this guy from. And I might switch up that display eventually, but I'm not going to be doing it right now on camera. So let's lift that tabard up a little bit, though. You can see some of the padded gambeson running down. Oh, come on now. Running down underneath the legs, and then the cloth underneath it, all with weathering. That honestly looks like mold. It's not, but that's how it comes, with just that immense old-looking wear and tear on it, which is really cool. Then you get down here to some more die-cast armor pieces for the legs, knees, shin, and all the way down into some feet, which are pretty essential. This guy does come with that display base that you see him on. However, he does not really need it to stand on his own. Let me get that out of there. As you can see, he stands on his own just fine. So while it's nice, and I do always like the added support of having display bases in my collection, it's not necessary. So what I'm going to do now is get this guy all robed back up. There we go. Get that helmet back on that head. Awesome. Fits on nice and snugly. And we're going to go over articulation a little bit. So he's a big guy in full armor. However, I'm happy to say that much like in real life, people like to imagine that European knights had very limited range of motion. However, he is still immensely posable, as is realistic. So the head, you could do all that stuff that you want to do with a head. Rotate it every which way, turn left, turn right, up and down. It's great. Like I said, this guy's a pretty big figure, so most of the time he's going to be looking down slightly at his opponent, which works for me. The arms, they're attached to the very top of the armor by a little bolt there, and they can go up. They have a nice double joint there. Go down, right here, up. Anything you could want to do, you can do it. Forward, down, get that right there. No big deal. Torso crunches forward quite a bit, crunches back quite a bit. It's on a standard 6-scale body, and it has, there you go, he can do a nice big kick, boom! Knock his opponent to the ground so that he can finish him off more easily. Big double joint in the knees there, and that folds over like that to follow him up with articulation if you were doing anything drastic. And the double cut here in the boot allows for some good ankle range. So you could get him in some pretty deep, brutal stances if you wanted to get him going to war or whatnot. So there we go, right like that. All right, so that's basically it for this guy. Not a very bare bones release by any means, but pretty straightforward. He is a knight, he is wearing armor, and he looks pretty badass. My closing thoughts on this are two things, I guess. So he was released as one of 2 European Night exclusives for the Shanghai Wonder Festival, I believe. Either way, for an exclusive, he was pretty widely available everywhere else. He may not be once he sells out. I opted to pick this guy up in lieu of I think the other one was a Teutonic Knight or a Templar, only because I've never been a really big fan of the massive winged helmets that pop out on the figures, because it's not necessarily realistic to what they would have worn when they went to war. They might have done it for more showy events, but when engaged in actual warfare as crusaders, were wont to do from time to time, they would not have a grandiose, showy helmet. It would be simple, to the point, kind of like this one, because if you had those massive wings coming off the sides of your head, all of a sudden your head becomes a much bigger target for the enemy and much harder for you to defend with ease and standard range of motion that the human body has. And while it is a helmet, getting knocked in the helmet by a big club or a heavy axe is still going to hurt quite a bit. So I opted for this guy because I felt like it delivered more on the medieval realism aspect of things a bit. And I also just like the color motif of the Knights Hospitaller, black with some white accents. And their history is pretty cool too. So blah, blah, blah. That's why I went for this guy, and he looks great on display. I picked him up at BBTS, where he is still available, I think. And if you're curious about getting a couple more of these faux realistic knights into your display, you can go there or any other retailer that carries CooModel usually and check out all of the pictures that they have. The promotional pictures were really cool and probably do it justice a bit more than I can in this tiny light box. But yeah, check them out. If you dig it, pick it up and let me know your thoughts on this piece or others, or medieval history if you want to, down in the comments below, because I love getting a dialogue going with my fellow collectors or history hobbyists. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on collecting. Bye-bye.